Consumers are harmed by these policies.
And I understand the Canadian government wants to implement a tariff to make more money, to put it back in the economy. And it's just too loosey-goosey.
It's not for us, and we want to look somewhere else, and you want to punish us because we want to look, somewhere else.
Some people in the furniture industry are worried about new taxes that could come into play. They say it would mean you or I would be paying a whole lot more for things like sofas and dining chairs. Let me explain. 2 years ago, the federal government imposed a new tariff on leather sofas and recliners imported from China and Vietnam. Tariffs as high as 295%. A group of Canadian manufacturers were behind the push for that tariff. They said then it was to protect Canadian industry. Fast forward to today, a similar group is looking to file another complaint, this time on fabric sofas and chairs. We wanted to know how effective these measures actually are. But first, let's hear from the people speaking out. How did it affect your business then? What happened when that tariff came into place?
Boy, that was a wild time. We had a number of containers on the water, and what we weren't aware of is the duty tariff that was implemented immediately. So once that all came in, we were stuck with a massive bill.
And do you remember what it was for you?
Let's just say in that $60,000 range, which, grand scheme of things, is a lot of money to any business to get hit while you're trying to run your finances.
Let's talk about this tariff that could be forthcoming.
If it's 295% last time with no warning again, then we can't plan or adjust. People that are buying imports need things right away. They need them at a decent price, and people don't have the money to go necessarily spend $2,700, $2,200 on a sofa. Yeah, probably 40 to 45% is my overseas products.
So do you think you'd have to raise prices if those tariffs came in?
The answer is probably, for sure. Yeah, if it comes in at 20, 30%, you have to. It's a lot. You can only absorb so much. The margins in furniture is very tight.
It's not just small retailers like Robbie who are concerned. Major chains are too. Sure, they can weather cost fluctuations better, but the VP of Structube, which runs 75 stores across the country, says it's about choice. Would it be fair to say that it feels like many Canadian manufacturers aren't able to meet the demands of a business like yours?
If I look around in the Canadian market, I may have 1,000 SKUs, 1,000 different models to choose from. If I go overseas, I have hundreds of thousands. Many more of those are in line with our aesthetic, with our style, with our brand. We don't find that with the Canadian domestic producer. The tariff situation is the government saying, you have one store that you're allowed to shop from. Imagine telling a Canadian consumer you have one store that you're allowed to shop from to buy. I mean, that's how we feel as a consumer, if you will, going out in the big market buying furniture for everybody. You've got to shop Canadian only, but listen, it's not for us, and we want to look somewhere else, and you want to punish us because we want to look, somewhere else.
2 years ago, the company who led a similar complaint also declined an interview. But here's what one Canadian manufacturer who's part of the Home Furnishings Alliance said then about their struggle.
How is it that a piece of furniture can arrive in Canada for less than just our raw material cost is? And we're only asking for it to be fair.
We really wanted to hear from the Canadian Home Furnishings Alliance, which is the group leading the latest complaint to Canada Border Services Agency, but no one was willing to speak to us on the record. They had sent out a letter to domestic industry partners back in November. We got a copy of the letter, and it says their goal is to protect the Canadian manufacturing industry. If the feds decide to investigate and impose the new tariffs, they estimate it could kick in by May of 2024, but nothing in that letter about how it could affect us, consumers. So under the Special Imports Measures Act, is it seen as a penalty against some of these domestic retailers who want to bring in imports?
Yeah, CEMA is not intended to penalize domestic retailers, but it does. Over time, that penalty or that cost will disappear. Canadian retailers will simply stop importing from Vietnam and China.
Part of the argument is that they want to protect Canadian jobs, protect Canadian manufacturing. Is that something in the research that you've seen has come across, that it's worked to actually do that?
By protecting an industry, you do improve employment in that sector. The problem is that it can cost you employment in other sectors. If we do impose this tariff measure, it is quite likely that China would respond with something similar.
So where does this put consumers at the end of the day?
That means that consumers are going to face higher prices. Now, the prices of these Chinese and Vietnamese exports will be too high. They'll just disappear. But other products that consumers buy will be more expensive than the Chinese and Vietnamese products would have been without the tariff. So everyone will have to buy the sort of more expensive made in Canada versions.
Or ones imported from other countries?
Or imported from the United States or Europe.